You know what they say, fake it until you make it. Case in point, the Russian President Vladimir Putin. He loves to boast about his country's modern arsenal, nuclear-powered cruise missiles, nuclear torpedoes, and cutting-edge hypersonic weapons, like the Avangard glide vehicle and the Kh-47 Kinzhal. Back in 2018, Putin unveiled Kinzhal as the world's first maneuverable hypersonic missile, claiming it was invincible to all current and future air defense systems. The next thing you know, in 2023, Ukrainians managed to intercept the super missile with the 40-year-old Patriot air defense system. Fast forward a year later to 2024, and the news breaks that Russia, in a classic revival of Soviet tradition, has been sentencing multiple hypersonic scientists to prison for treason. About half a dozen were jailed, and at least 3 are now dead, probably from natural causes. Now I know what you're thinking. Putin announces to the world that Kinzhal is invincible, then Ukraine shoots it down, which makes President Putin look foolish. So he blames the scientists and has them arrested. But that is not what happened. And the real story is not what you think. It's darker, stranger, and as you'll see, much worse for Russia. The Russian Kh-47M2 Kinzhal is marketed as an unstoppable hypersonic missile launched from aircraft like the MiG-31K or the Tu-22M3. It has a reported range of 300 miles, which extends to 1,600 miles when you include the combat radius of the launching aircraft. It carries a 1,000-pound conventional warhead, or a tactical nuclear payload of 5 to 50 kilotons, capable of hitting both stationary and mobile targets like warships. Estimates suggest the missile cost about $10 million per unit, with production rates hitting 10 to 15 per month in 2025. Now, Russia claims the missile is invincible for 2 reasons. First is its speed of Mach 10. Second is its ability to maneuver unpredictably during all phases of flight to confuse air defense systems. Now, before I start criticizing this weapon, let's be clear. This missile is deadly. It is one of the most advanced Russian weapons in production, and you definitely don't want it heading your way. And as you'll find out in a minute, the Russians have made it even deadlier. But is it hypersonic? Technically, yes. Anything faster than Mach 5 is hypersonic. But by that definition, even the German V-2 rocket from World War II was hypersonic, even though nobody refers to it that way. While Kinzhal can reach speeds in excess of Mach 5 while flying high in the atmosphere, during its terminal descent, air resistance in the lower atmosphere significantly slows it down, probably to around Mach 3. Here's the thing, Kinzhal is not a true modern hypersonic weapon. It's neither a hypersonic glide vehicle nor does it use an air-breathing scramjet engine. Essentially, it's just an air-launched ballistic missile, relying on decades-old solid-fuel rocket motors. Modern hypersonic weapons imply sustained maneuverability at high speeds. Kinzhal can maneuver slightly, but it follows a quasi-ballistic trajectory that is predictable enough for advanced radars to track. Both the UK intelligence and Chinese military analysts have questioned Kinzhal's maneuverability and accuracy, with the Chinese even calling it outdated 1980s Cold War technology. It is, at its heart, just an air-launched version of the ground-based Iskander missile with increased speed and a modified guidance system. Speaking of outdated technology, free public Wi-Fi is still a thing. But what you and I do online is only our business, and our sponsor CyberGhost VPN helps us keep it that way. By encrypting my connection and rerouting the traffic through their secure servers, my internet provider at home, the IT guy in the hotel I'm staying at, and definitely those three-letter government agencies have no way. Not that I have anything to hide, I promise. When I pick one of CyberGhost's 100+ server locations, I can unlock geo-restricted content on over 40 streaming platforms like Netflix and Amazon Prime. Plus, I can even get better prices on flights, hotels, or subscriptions just by changing my virtual location. All that for only $2.03 per month, and I even get 4 months of access for free. No wonder over 38 million people use CyberGhost every day, especially that it works on all devices and platforms. And I can even share my subscription with up to 7 people, which is great if I ever manage to make that many friends. If you respect your privacy, click the link in the description for this 84% off deal with a 45-day money-back guarantee, no questions asked, even if you're watching questionable videos at 3 a.m. Kinzhal was the first hypersonic missile used in combat, debuting in the spring of 2022. And for about a year, the superweapon truly seemed invincible. But all that changed in the spring of 2023, when Ukraine received its first Patriot battery. On May 4, 2023, the Ukrainian Air Force shot down a Kinzhal missile over Kyiv. It was the first combat intercept of a hypersonic missile in history. The Russians denied it, but the Pentagon confirmed it on May 9, 2023.
Missile by employing the Patriot missile defense.
According to the Patriot operators, the Mach 10 missile was actually traveling at about Mach 3.6 during its terminal phase, just like it was predicted. This was proclaimed as a massive victory, an unstoppable missile stopped by a system designed in the 1980s. Although, to be fair, that claim is slightly exaggerated, because the Patriot missile has been heavily upgraded, with the PAC-3 MSE interceptors entering service in 2015. Also, Kinzhal itself isn't exactly brand new either. It is 1980s technology dressed up in new marketing. Propaganda cuts both ways. Just 12 days after the first intercept, on May 16, 2023, Ukraine claimed to shoot down 6 out of 6 launched Kinzhals in a single night. Russia denied it. While the exact numbers are debatable, the fact remains that Russia's invincible missile is interceptable. Now, even though Kinzhal is not a game changer, it still remains incredibly dangerous. In fact, the Financial Times reported that in August 2025, Ukraine's interception rate for ballistic missiles like the Iskander-M and Kinzhal was 37%. But only a month later, the interception rate dropped to just 6%. Why? Because Russia modified the missile's flight profiles to execute steeper terminal dives and even equipped them with decoys to confuse the Patriot systems. Now, you might be thinking that those Russian scientists were arrested because Kinzhal failed to live up to the hype. But that theory is 100% incorrect. The arrests began before Ukraine had intercepted even a single Kinzhal missile. As it turns out, the only thing faster than Kinzhal is Ukrainian propaganda. Because following the successful intercepts, Ukrainian media exploded with headlines claiming that those arrested were developers of the Russian hypersonic missile. Of course, that was a lie, because after I did some digging, these were the men who had been arrested: Anatoly Maslov, Alexander Shiplyuk, Valery Vigintsev, and Vladislav Galkin, none of which were engineers who designed or built Kinzhal. They were just university professors. More specifically, they were theoretical physicists from the Institute of Theoretical and Applied Mechanics, who did research in the area of hypersonics. Anatoly Maslov studied hypersonic laminar turbulent transition, basically how air flows over the surface of aircraft. Alexander Shiplyuk specialized in protective coatings and ran the wind tunnels. Valery Vigintsev and Vladislav Golkin worked on air intakes for scramjet engines. These men were not building bombs. The closest thing they ever did was a rocket festival for kids that used water to launch Coca-Cola bottles. True story. In Russia, treason trials are held behind closed doors, so details are scarce. But officially, the FSB accused those men of passing classified data to China, Germany, Belgium, and Iran during international conferences. The absurdity is that many of these leaks were legally approved presentations or collaborative projects from years ago that the state retroactively declared treasonous. For example, the FSB claimed Anatoly Maslov sent data to German intelligence in 2014. He was sentenced to 14 years in 2024. Alexander Shiplyuk got 15 years for handing materials to China at a conference in 2017. Vigintsev and Golkin were likely arrested for an article published in an Iranian journal in 2021, an article about air intake mechanisms fully open to the public. The purge didn't stop there. Two more scientists, Valery Golubkin and Anatoly Gubanov, were sentenced to 12 years in 2023. Their crime? Working with the European Space Agency on a Hexafly, a hypersonic civilian passenger aircraft. Specifically, they were accused of transferring documents related to Hexafly to their European colleagues in the Netherlands, something that they were instructed to do by their boss. 3 separate committees had confirmed their documents contained no secrets, but they were jailed anyway. Then there is Alexander Kuranov, who worked on the hypersonic, scramjet-powered Ajax aircraft. He was arrested in 2021 and jailed for 7 years in 2024, allegedly for working with foreign intelligence. And then there are the ones who are now dead. 3 scientists, 2 from Tsnimash, were arrested earlier. Dmitry Kolker, a laser specialist, arrested in June 2022. Viktor Kudryavtsev, arrested in 2018. And Roman Kovalyev, arrested in 2019. All 3 died from cancer. Dmitry Kolker's case is particularly horrific. He had stage 4 pancreatic cancer and was dragged from his hospital bed by the FSB. He died in custody 2 days later. Viktor Kudryavtsev was arrested for sending a rounded cone diagram to the von Karman Institute in Belgium, part of an approved joint project. The FSB thought the cone looked like a warhead.
Supreme Leader, the shape of the missile top has nothing to do with aerodynamics. It is about the payload delivery.
It is too round on the top. It needs to be pointy.
The institute insisted it was basic research. Kudryavtsev died of cancer before trial in 2021. Roman Kovalyev was sentenced to 7 years, released on health grounds, and died shortly after. Now here's the crazy part. Most of these men, Vigintsev, Maslov, Golubkin, and Kuranov, worked on scramjets. Kinzhal doesn't use a scramjet engine. It uses a solid rocket motor from the 1980s. It's scientifically impossible to connect their modern scramjet research to a missile designed 40 years ago. So why arrest them? The prevalent theory is that these scientists are simply scapegoats. Some say Putin was told Kinzhal was a true hypersonic weapon, a scramjet or glider. When he eventually found out it was just a fast ballistic missile from the Soviet archives, the FSB had to clean up the mess. Since they couldn't arrest their own generals or the powerful heads of defense corporations, they went after the nerds, the vulnerable academics whose theoretical work promised hypersonic invincibility that the actual hardware failed to deliver. The critics suggest the FSB wants to create the illusion that foreign spies are hunting down secrets of Russian superweapons. It's just paranoia and spy mania. Hypersonics is a topic you're now obliged to put people in jail for, said Yevgeny Smirnov, a human rights lawyer. According to him, none of these men had access to the defense sector. They studied how metals deform and how air moves. According to the lawyers who held private conversations with FSB, the whole thing about hypersonic secret arrests was opened up to satisfy the wishes of higher-ups. In May 2023, the remaining scientists at the Institute of Theoretical and Applied Mechanics did something incredibly rare. They published a now deleted open letter. In it, they called the arrested men patriots. They pointed out that every treasonous document had been checked and approved by the Institute's own Security Commission. Most hauntingly, they admitted they simply don't know how to continue their craft. They fear that any scientific article they publish could lead to a treason charge. They warned that this purge will result in the collapse of Russian hypersonic science, because young scientists are now absolutely terrified to enter the field. The FSB is actively dismantling the very intellectual engine that keeps Russia competitive, which is pure madness. Sun Tzu once said, "Never interrupt your opponent while he's in the middle of making a mistake." But hey, if history is writing itself, we might as well narrate it. Click the link below to get CyberGhost VPN for just $2.03 per month. Keep your data safe while browsing and unlock all blocked content online. Try CyberGhost VPN completely risk-free with a 45-day money-back guarantee.